Welcome, everyone. My name is the Reverend Ashley Burzak, and I'm the chaplain for the Unitarian Universalists here at Riderwood. It's good to be together as we celebrate Penny's life. Penny was an instrumental founder of the Unitarian Universalists at Riderwood. She was known as an unfailingly gracious force for connection. We're so grateful that Penny was part of our community, and we wish her family comfort and peace in their loss. I'd like to welcome the leader of our service today, Reverend Ann Kaldacek.
Thank you, Ashley. And good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Ann Kadlacek. I'm the minister at Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church, where Penny O'Brien was a longtime and much beloved member. It is good to be together this morning here in person, and those of you who are joining us online, as we gather to remember and celebrate Penny, the remarkable life she lived, and the gift that her life was to each of us and to the world. For whatever happens when we die, the life we make on this earth is important and meaningful and holy and worthy of reflection and celebration. Before we begin by lighting our chalice, just a couple of announcements. We are wearing masks during the service, except that speakers may choose, if you wish, to take your mask off while speaking from the microphone. Bathrooms are right outside the rear doors of the chapel. And if you haven't already, please silence any phones or other devices that make unexpected sounds when we least want to hear them. And now we begin the service with the lighting of our chalice. Through this ritual each week in our worship service, we call our whole selves into community and recall our connection to all that is, those who came before, and those yet to come. And we remind ourselves of our commitment to pursuing lives of integrity, justice, and compassion. Our chalice lighting words will be read by Brian Yu, and the chalice will be lit by Persis Yu.
In this time of remembrance, may this light illuminate our heart and remind us of the flame of ongoing life. In our season of grief, we light this chalice in gratitude to those now gone who kept alive the flame in us.
Now I invite you to rise in body and or spirit for our opening hymn, Just as Long as I Have Breath. It's on the insert in your order of service. be seated. And now Lennon Zahn will share a poem that he wrote.
I wrote this poem to Great Grandma Penny as a Christmas gift. The title of the poem is Walking in the Woods. While walking below the trees, stomping on the fallen leaves, listening to the rhythm of the birds sweet, the squirrels eating the nuts from the big oak tree. The wind whistling in my ear when winter's near. It's lovely here, but my time here is tight. It's getting dark and almost night, and I'll turn right back around.
Thank you, Lennon. That was beautiful. Penny O'Brien was born in Turkey in 1928 to her American parents, Paul and Persis Penningroth. She then spent most of her childhood in St. Petersburg, Florida, with her parents, her sister Emily, her brother Paul. In 1946, at age 18, Penny left to attend college, first Antioch College in Ohio, and then the University of Iowa, studying biology. She also joined the NAACP then, which perhaps tells us something about her early response to growing up in the segregated South. Penny married Jim O'Brien in 1950, and they had 5 children. In 1960, they moved to Endwell, New York, and the Universalist Church in nearby Binghamton became a big part of Penny's life. She volunteered for everything. You know what I'm talking about here. She wrote hundreds of newsletters, and she even became a director of religious education. And Penny was an activist and organizer for justice issues of all kinds: environmental, voting rights, anti-war, reproductive rights, racial justice. She volunteered in schools, organized cleanups, marched in gay pride parades. Where there was injustice or a need, Penny was there. When Jim died in 1991, Penny joined the Peace Corps, and she spent 2 years in Dominica. Afterwards, she settled in Maryland, where her grandchildren lived, and joined Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church. There, her zest for volunteering, passion for justice, quick wit, and kind spirit made her an integral and beloved member of the community for almost 30 years. There are 2 things I want to particularly lift up about Penny before we hear from the people who knew her best. The first is her welcoming spirit. I can't tell you how many people have told me that the first person they talked with at Paint Branch was Penny. And not only did they decide to stay, but the memory of that moment stuck with them. Penny helped people to know that they were welcome, over and over. The second is that Penny showed up for justice issues and for her community. Even in her last year, when getting around was a challenge and building issues disrupted our church activities, Penny showed up to parking lot events and worship experiments. This is also a tribute to her daughter, Kathy, who made Penny's presence possible. But it would never have happened without Penny choosing to be there. And now that we meet in rented space, Penny was there too, with us for worship just a couple of weeks before her death, just shy of her 95th birthday. Penny and her welcoming spirit showed up. And the world and our lives are the better for it. And now I invite some recollections from Penny's son, Michael O'Brien.
At our first meeting with the hospice workers, they asked what Mom did for work. I said that rather than work, she volunteered. Kathy added that she was a teacher. Both were part and parcel of her life. It wasn't until later in life that we realized that almost everything we did was a teaching moment. As children, we were taught to leave a place better than we found it. As children, the family traveled extensively. Before there were interstates and rest areas, there were wayside picnic areas. Almost always, we were required to pick up at least 10 pieces of trash, whether we liked it or not. So to this day, I still clean up after myself and others. Another lesson was that we shouldn't be too concerned about what others were doing or thinking. One summer day, long ago, I remember we were visiting the National Mall. Long before it was fashionable, we were simply going to sit in the grass for a picnic. I was so embarrassed that I remember I refused to eat and didn't even want to be seen with them. In retrospect, we were trendsetters. I was in almost the same spot this past Saturday, and on a chilly, windy day, there were hundreds of people picnicking. Again, I picked up more than my share. Perhaps the most important lesson was that we must never quit learning. Later in life, she taught herself to paint. Using watercolors, she became quite accomplished. And I'd like to point out this picture of the house over here. That was the house we grew up in Endwell, and that was one of her better works. She imparted many other values through her volunteer work. Often it revolved around conservation, which got back to always leaving a place better than you found it. No matter what, she always embodied grace and dignity. The world in general, and our lives in particular, the world in general and our lives in particular are much better due to her lessons. So today, we are here in celebration and not in sorrow. We are all richer for having been touched by her. In the end, she was at peace, knowing that she had done what she could, and we should all strive to emulate her, acknowledging the high standards that she set. And I'd like to read a poem. I never did see this. I'm not sure where it came from, but I found it when we came to the house. It is, "Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on the snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. I am the stars that shine at night. When you awaken in the morning hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds circled in flight. Do not stand at my grave. Do not cry. I am not there. I did not die." We love you, Mom. You will be missed, but we know you're in a better place. Rest in peace.
And now, Kathy, you.
As mentioned, I'm Penny's daughter, and please bear with me. I'm going to try to condense my 66-year relationship with my mother into 5 minutes. My mother introduced herself to a women's conference with, "I am a writer, a teacher, a mother and grandmother, and a dreamer. I dream of a world where people are valued according to their hearts and how they care about others." She worked to make the world a better place. And as Anne said, she was an environmentalist long before the first Earth Day, a pacifist before World War II, an anti-racist since her college days, a feminist, and a fervent believer in democracy. But most of all, she was loving. She loved her family, and she loved people. My mother lived life fully, always wanting to go off to do something, often dragging me along as her sidekick. She was a joiner. When there was a cause, she joined with people to come up with solutions. Some of my earliest memories of her activism are seeing multiple posters of the Susquehanna River Basin around our dining room in the 1960s. She led a team of the League of Women Voters to inform people about the problems the pollution of the Susquehanna River was causing in the Chesapeake Bay. She was excited about the creation of the very first Earth Day, and I see a lot of us were there then. My mother welcomed all people. She sought opportunities to know people of other places. One of the life lessons that Michael was referring to, we had a relationship with a teenage boy in Greece. We corresponded monthly with her. In 1991, she fulfilled an ambition she had had since 1960s to join the Peace Corps, and she went to the Caribbean country of Dominica. When she moved to Silver Spring, her house became the hotel for her fellow returned Peace Corps volunteers from Dominica whenever they stayed in Washington. Our family, I want to make a special mention, our family had a special affinity for Turkey where she was born. We researched things and kept touch with that. Our hearts are very heavy that her birthplace, Adana, suffered many losses in the recent earthquake. One of the memories I have of my mother is that she loved going to conferences and she loved teaching. In the early 1960s, it was to League of Women Voter conferences. Then it became UUA General Assemblies, and I think she's gone to many as almost anyone here. She went to a lot of religious education conferences, UMAC, and she took many elder hostel trips. She was always meeting new people and enveloping them into her world. And I will point out that Marge Dunn was one of the many people she met at these conferences who became a lifelong friend. And that's what my mother did. My mother was always helpful. I remember her supporting me in all my ventures. Whenever I was likely to stumble, she was able to put together the pieces. When I was having difficulty with a moving company, she called to intervene on my behalf. She also, one of the things that she did is she did a lot of work silently. She was the one who called a lot of the local HVAC companies to find out who could install the geothermal systems for the Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church. So and she didn't tell anybody that. Whenever I encountered a challenge in life, she was there to help me get it done. She often did things and let me take credit. She never wanted to take credit for what she did. But she was always there wanting to help. Even last summer, with her walker and her faulty memory, she would approach new residents of Riderwood offering her assistance. As Michael mentioned, my mother was constantly learning and teaching. Her favorite memory with my husband Fenwick was they got their master's degree on the same day from the same university. My mother loved to write. As Anne has referenced, she did lots and lots of newsletters. Wherever there was an organization, she volunteered to put together their newsletter. She also journaled. She was journaling up until December. I found journals from December. Mom loved arts and crafts, but first among those were knitting. She took her knitting everywhere in a plastic bag. Sometimes those plastic bags were from a department store that went bankrupt in 1992. She never threw anything out. She was still knitting even when her memory wouldn't allow her to follow a pattern. I found, I think she had at least a dozen projects going when she died, half finished. She loved Riderwood's Needlewood group whenever she remembered to go. You may have noticed throughout this resume of her life that my mother was always doing, always looking for new adventures, for someone to share a meal with or an adventure with, always looking for someone to take a class with or to go to church with. I was fortunate that frequently she chose me as that someone, as her companion. And I will miss her. And now I'd like to invite my granddaughter, Soraya Zahn, to read a poem.
Hello, my name is Soraya, and I'm going to be reading a poem that I don't think has a name. To laugh often and much, to win respect of intelligent people, and the affection of children. To earn the appreciation of honest critics, and endure the betrayal of false friends. To appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. I know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded.
Thank you, Soraya. And I'm so grateful to Michael and Kathy for sharing some of their memories. The sharing of stories is a big part of how we remember, how we grieve, how we remind ourselves that we carry those we love with us. In this next portion of the service, the family would like to invite others to come up to the microphone, the one that's on the floor in front of me here, and offer a few words of remembrance. And they've chosen to incorporate a ritual from the worship services at Paint Branch, the placing of stones in water to mark the joys and sorrows that are in our hearts. So anyone who wishes may come forward, Say a few words of your memories of Penny, or simply hold those memories silently in your heart and place a stone in the water. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone first and then place your stone in the water. If you prefer to come up in silence, you may skip the microphone and just place the stone. And of course, you can also remain seated and just listen and remember. So I invite you now to participate in the sharing of memories in whatever way makes sense for you today.
Hi, good morning. I'm Fenwick, Penny's son-in-law. Penny's daughter Kathy and I have been married for more than 45 years. So we did a lot of things and also went to a lot of places in the world together with Penny as a family. So I have a lot of fond memories of Penny. She was truly a kind, caring, loving, and friendly person, and I will forever miss her.
My name's Julie, and I'm a longtime friend of Penny's oldest son, Michael. I'm very happy to get to know Penny's family better. I really only got to be with Penny about 3 times, but every time I came, I brought my knitting, and I'd get it out, and she would go get her unfinished project and hold it in her lap, and we would knit together. But what I really remember most about Penny is that she always had a smile for everybody. And she would sit in a sunny place in the hallway, in the windows near Fox Run with her group of friends. I believe there was a couple dogs in the group. And I love Penny very much. And I'm happy to be here today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abby Crowley, and I'm one of those people that Penny greeted at Paint Branch Church more than 30 years ago when I arrived with an infant in my arms and a 3-year-old. And there was just something, like you all know, that drew me to her. I think, other than my own mother, that Penny was my biggest cheerleader. And she was a person that I went to when I had a big decision to make. When I thought about becoming the DRE at Paint Branch, she was like, absolutely, go for it. 9 years later, when I thought I should leave, she said, do what's best for you, Paint Branch will be okay. But the biggest decision that she helped me make was when, at 65, I decided that I might want to follow her lead and go into the Peace Corps. And I had trepidations about it. She said, you're like the same age I was. Go for it. You can definitely do it. And she was just always that can-do, you know, you'll be fine, everybody will be fine kind of presence in my life. And I will miss her very much. And I guess to Kathy and to the whole family, just my sincerest condolences. And I think there might be people in the room, including myself, that would like to finish one of those projects for Penny.
Hi, my name is Carol Valliere, and I've been a friend of Penny since 2006. When my husband and my son and I moved to this area, we chose Paint Branch as our church, and we were another person, like Abby, who was greeted by Penny. And she fondly remembers Andrew and always asks about him. He's 27 now. When my father and his doctors and his family decided he should live closer to family, Penny was one of the first people that I called. And she invited me for a tour of Riderwood. It was so overwhelming to think about this community. I've never really been here before. And she took me on a grand tour and told me this and that and the other thing. And then when my sister came to look at Riderwood, she offered to take my sister and me around to see Riderwood. And then when my father's sister wanted to see Riderwood, make sure this was a good place for my father, she was delighted to take my Aunt Margot around. Then finally my father came and she took him around, and then we got together from time to time because Penny became a friend of the family. We had a big dinner to celebrate my dad's moving to Riderwood, and Penny was there. After he passed away in 2018, my aunt, Margot, decided to move to Riderwood. And of course, she'd already toured the place, but when she did move here, we were able to get together with Penny. And beforehand, she'd always said, Margot, come visit anytime, you can stay with me. But that was nice because they were peers. And our whole family will miss her.
This is rare for me. I'm Eric Most. I haven't really been out for about 3 years now, so this is special for me. Family is what Penny really is. And oddly enough, I didn't get to know her before I knew her son, Rich, when we were about both 18. And I never even knew who Penny was for another 20 years. But she's given me also Kathy, who is one of my favorite people in the world. And I got to know Paul. I liked Paul instantly as soon as I met him too. Never met Mike, sorry about that. But she created a family also at church too. And she's good at creating families and connections with people. And she's so selfish. And I can remember I used to work on the church, and one day she showed up with pizza. Didn't tell her I was going to be there. Didn't ask her to bring pizza, she just does it. That's who she is. And then every day I would come in to do that, she'd show up. She never asked me, never did anything, she'd just be there. She was supportive. In everything that she did, she was always supportive of other individuals first. She is a wonderful person, and she knows how to build a family and interactions with other individuals. And I love it that Ben's in the world too now. So it's all because of her. So, and those two darling kids this morning, just amazing. So she leaves a lot of family behind here. Everybody else that's here that I see in this room, they're all my family also. And that's because, and partly and mainly, a lot of reasons because of her. So all I can do is thank her for that. Thank you, Kathy.
Is this going to work? I'm Marilyn Pearl. I'm shocked to realize that I came to Paint Branch long before Penny did, because I always felt she was welcoming me. And she continued to. Every time that she caught my eye at church, it was with a great big smile. I always felt like she was welcoming me there. Now, I know people at Paint Branch, or got to know them better through the ethnic dinners, and Penny was no exception. She came to many of them. She cooked for a few of them. And then one day she came to my house for, I believe it was an auction dinner. And she walked into my kitchen and she looked around and she said, "This is where the magic happens." I think that was one of the best compliments I ever got. She was just an amazing person. somebody that we all should try to be more like.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Christine McCoy, and Penny was a Peace Corps volunteer with me. Sorry. And I had the great pleasure of having her end up living across the street from me. So we became very good friends, and she was a lovely person. I know everybody from our group, Returned Peace Corps volunteer group, is extremely saddened, but she lived a full, wonderful life. She made a huge impression on all of us. We all adored her very much. And so, may she rest in peace.
I don't really have a memory, but I know that she made the blanket that I sleep with every night. And for Christmas, me and Lennon made this. I painted the cover, and Lennon made this poem that is inside of it. And me and Lennon really miss her, and we really wish she was still here. And she never really, Mama had an idea. We would write one poem in there, and then she could write some pictures and some poems in there too. But she never lived long enough to do that, so we have the book.
Hi, I'm Patty Dawkantis. I'm a member of Paint Branch. And Penny O'Brien was my first pledge steward in our annual pledge drive. She came to my house where I was staying, and I said, well, I don't have much money. I'm a grad student. I'm a teaching assistant. And she said, she said that line that I guess is quite familiar to a lot of people. It's not how much you pledge, it's just we need to know how much is coming so we can plan around it. And in the 1990s, we served on the newsletter team together for a number of years. The newsletter was called Branches, and I learned a lot from her about how to do layout and design for a newsletter. And when she upgraded her computer, she sold me her old one so I could finish my master's degree, because by that time I wasn't a full-time grad student anymore, but I still needed to get that thesis done. And I appreciated Penny's smile and her optimism. She was always so positive and had helpful suggestions. And another thing I liked about her is that she and my mom, even though they never met, both had something in common. They were both named Penny, even though their real first names had nothing to do with Penny. And in Penny O'Brien's case, it was because she was born a Pennington, I guess, and in my mother's case, her name was Henrietta, and somebody made the joke, Henny Penny, the sky is falling, and the nickname Penny stuck. So I just thought that was just a nice thing, and I told her about it, and Penny O'Brien about it, and she smiled and was amused. And I will miss her. It's mind-blowing to me she's not helping out with the refreshments afterwards.
those help you.
One thing I remember about Penny is that she was always so cheerful. Every time I walked into her room, I saw a smile on her face. And she always found the best in every situation.
Hello, I'm Jessica Hanna. I'm Penny's granddaughter-in-law. Penny, as we've all heard, was such a special person and so warm and welcoming. It was no exception when I was first introduced to her and then joined the family. She was always a delight, always so loving, and made me feel as though I had always been part of the family, and it was a great joy to be able to celebrate our wedding. She was out on the dance floor, mingling with everyone, having a wonderful time, so that's a really special memory, and I'm just so grateful to have gotten the chance to spend so much time with her over the last couple years.
My name is Ishtar. I have the great fortune to be married to Penny's granddaughter, Persis. When we married in 2011, Penny met my mother, and they really hit it off, as people do with Penny. And one of the things that really touched me is that in the decade plus since then, I have never met Penny. Like when we come down for holidays, every single time that I've met her, she inquires about my mother without fail. Even this last Christmas, when things were very difficult for her, she greeted me warmly, and one of the first things she said was, "And how's your mother?" She never failed to do that. It really touched me. The other thing, which I'm surprised, honestly, I am surprised that I've not heard more about this. Penny was really funny. I'm surprised that everyone hasn't commented on that. But I loved Penny's sense of humor. I remember, the jokes weren't like a big setup or anything. They're always like sort of subtle, but just hilarious. I remember coming through with a hot dish or something. I said, "Watch out, Penny." She looks out the window. "What am I watching out for?" Hilarious. I mean, to me, I really love that about her. Gonna miss her.
So my grandma moved to Silver Spring when I was 5. And she actually moved, where she first moved to was just a block away from us, so I got to spend, a lot of just afternoons over there. A lot of you will probably recognize me from, just being received at her house. And, one thing that I have images of, because I was 5, was that she would always have something new that she wanted to show me that, she thought, he'll just like this. I got into, and it'll always be a small thing, I got into pumpernickel bread because she thought I would love the word pumpernickel, which I did, and it's still one of my favorite kinds of bread. Or she brought back this passion fruit juice concentrate from Dominica, and she would encourage me to watch the birds at her feeder, and discover which one was my favorite one, which was the goldfinch. And she encouraged me to. Oh, I'm gonna cry. All right. She encouraged me to love goldfinches. So I got married recently, or Jessica and I got married recently, and we had a reception and toasts, which is the great opportunity for all your closest people to distill the most positive things they can say about you. And what I got was Brian's driving force is his curiosity, and based on my memories, and I'm sure based on yours too, you probably know where that comes from, or a big part of it. And I think it was my grandmom who played a big part in introducing me to the idea that life in the world is a place of infinite, small, and simple pleasures, and that everybody should get to try to experience the best and fullest of them. I think she did that. I think it lives with all of us who were influenced by her, and it endures from her. So I hope that that all stays with us. Yep, I'm doing it. And and I'm going to miss that a lot. Thanks.
As Brian mentioned, I'm Persis, Brian's sister, Penny's granddaughter. As Brian mentioned, my grandmother moved just a couple blocks away when we were kids. And that St. Lawrence house was definitely a second home for us. And when my parents moved to China after I turned 18, it became my primary home. And she was the base that I went back to. She and Pat, her Peace Corps friend, drove me to college, and that was the place I came home to every Thanksgiving and Christmas for those 4 years. And I always appreciated having her as that home during that time. I think my grandmother definitely is a big part of why I am who I am. Many people know I'm an advocate, a social justice advocate, and when I talk to people and they say, how did you grow up to be this way? And I tell them about my grandmother. And one of the things that I will cherish for the rest of my life is that in her last weekend with us, getting to spend time with her. And one of the memories that I shared with her was about how every single time any single person will tell me, I'm going to go throw this away, I hear her voice say, there is no away. And I told her this weekend, and that was, I think, the last smile that she gave to me. And I think it spoke to who she was. So I will miss her.
Well, it has been wonderful to hear all of these memories. And I know that there are more that everyone here is carrying in your hearts. And I hope you'll continue to share with each other after this service is over. Let's take a moment now to just sit quietly and reflect on all that we've heard and the memories that we carry in our hearts as David plays. Our memories are holy. So is our sense of loss and grief. These feelings arise because Penny's life touched our own. We miss her because we are connected to her and love her. May we hold on to those memories, to that connection, to that love. May the memories comfort and inspire us and bring some joy and humor, as Penny would wish. May her family and friends be sustained in their time of grief by the love witnessed here and surrounding them in the coming days and weeks. And may we honor her life, that she lived so very well in the living of our own, choosing over and over not to give death the last word. May it be so. Please join with me in our responsive reading that is provided in your order of service. I will read the lines labeled 1, and I invite you to speak the bold lines for all. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. To honor Penny's deep roots at Paint Branch, we will sing our traditional closing hymn, Spirit of Life, all together once through in English. The words and music are on the insert in your order of service. Please rise as you are willing and able.
With
Please be seated. Penny is a part of us, and we remember her. Her smile, her welcome, her enthusiasm for life, her courage, her showing up. May we carry forward all that was good in Penny, so long as we too shall live. May it be so. Our chalice extinguishing words will be read by Persis Yu, and then the chalice will be extinguished by Brian.
May the light that was Penny's life burn brightly and joyously in our hearts. Let us carefully tend that flame as we honor her with the precious gifts of our memory and our love.
So in a moment after the postlude, you are all invited by the family to gather in the hallway for conversation and a light lunch. Feel free to carry your food outside if you wish. And our postlude is a dance by Paint Branch's own chalice dancers. They're dancing to Peter Mayer's song, Blue Boat Home. Penny commissioned this dance 10 years ago when hers was the winning bid in the Paint Branch auction. And Penny's family and the chalice dancers have chosen to bring it back today in her honor. Please remain seated briefly at the end of the dance so that the family can move smoothly to the back of the chapel to receive you. And now, the chalice dancers.